Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believes that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way in the US in Colorado by Holly Duckworth. Thank you, Holly, for being here, for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, lovely to connect once more. And for everyone that is listening and watching to us, what can you share about you, about Holly, and your journey so far in this lifetime?
Yeah, sure. Well, I spend most of my days doing quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is a mouthful. QHHT. Even the acronym is hard to say. And that's Dolores Cannon's form of hypnosis. So it's a really unusual kind of hypnosis. QHHT sessions are 5 to 7 hours. And in that session, you're in hypnosis for 2 to 3 hours. So we achieve like a super deep level of trance. And that's where we connect with the higher self. And I have a conversation with the higher self through the client. So basically, the client is trance channeling the higher self to get questions about physical health, emotional health, life decisions, relationships, anything they want to explore. So that's what I spend most of my days doing. I have a PhD in psychology, so I also do psychotherapy. And just a little personal note, I'm here in the Rocky Mountains. I live at 7,000 feet elevation in a 1-bedroom log cabin with my husband of 34 years. So, yeah.
Cool.
A little about me.
Yeah, and can you share a little about, Holly, how did you get into this? Like, what prompted you to discover this or to choose this as your life?
Yeah, through tragedy, as most spiritual awakenings are, as most of us who step on the spiritual path and the healing path, I found working with my clients, most of the time it's through some sort of very critical life circumstance, and it was the same for me. About 13 years ago, my son, who was 20 years old at the time, was arrested for driving under the influence. And we lived in a city at the time that had very, very harsh types of punishment for even first offense. And my very golden, sweet, precious son went to a tent in the desert with other incarcerated people, and these were murderers and rapists and child molesters and all kinds of people. And there was my son for 21 days. And so I was a nervous wreck. I was having a crisis, pacing, couldn't sleep, pulling my hair out. I couldn't visit him. I could only have a rare phone call with him. And in one of those phone calls, he said, "Hey, Mom, I think I found a book that you'd really like here in jail." And it was a book by Dolores Cannon. It was Convoluted Universe Book 4. And I later found she had a prison outreach program. So her publishing company sent lots and lots of books to jails and prisons. And so my son had found one of those. And so I had never heard of her, never would have heard of her. I already had my PhD in psychology. My background is in engineering before that. So a very, very, very technical background. I was working in corporations doing things like leadership development and executive coaching and that kind of thing with my PhD. And so I hang up from the phone call with my son, Amazon, click, click, Convoluted Universe book 4. And I opened that book, Brian, and everything I had ever believed in my life, there it was in print. And I'd never seen it in print before. And so it was a profound moment for me. I started devouring her books. She wrote 21 books across her lifetime, all based on her hypnosis experiences. And so then my son got out of jail towards the Christmas of 2012. And she was going to be having a weekend seminar in January. And so I told my son, I was a huge fan by now. I told my son, I'm like, let's go be with her. Let's be in the room with her. And it'd be healing for me and healing for my son. And we'd have a moment together. So we went, and Dolores would do these group regressions where she would put 100 people into hypnosis, 200 people into hypnosis simultaneously. So that's the kind of thing it was. And then each day it was kind of a different topic. It might be past life, it might be future life, it might be meeting spirit guides, but all spiritually oriented hypnosis. And now remember, I'm an engineer, okay? And so I was very skeptical for myself. I was a huge Dolores Cannon fan. I loved her research. I had questions about her research, but I really didn't think that hypnosis thing was going to work on me. It works on everybody else, but I was too analytical and it wasn't going to work on me. And so my son and I are in the crowd, and she's walking everybody into hypnosis. This one was a past life regression. And I looked down at my body, and I was a Black woman. I was an African-American woman, somewhere in either Chicago or St. Louis in the 19 teens, and just a very mundane, sweet life. I was married, I had kids, I could see myself hanging the laundry in the backyard. I could smell the bacon cooking in my kitchen. I mean, these are really visceral sensations. And so we went through that whole life, saw myself in the casket. Dolores felt it's important to take people through the death process in her hypnosis, in her past life regressions. And so I came out of that hypnosis and I was like, oh my gosh, this works. This really works. Like I'm going to run up to the stage and tell Dolores Cannon, who's only been doing this for 30 years at this point, did you know this actually works? I didn't do that. But I was sold. The whole weekend was profound, impactful. That was in January. In February, I was in training, and I never looked back. I'm like, I know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is so, so powerful, her methodology. And so I never looked back. I've been doing it for 13 years now.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I often find it interesting how for so many people, one is how we get into like a redirection of our path or discover more of an introspective or spiritual path. Like, as you're saying, like there's something that happens, and then from then on, like it takes us, and then the synchronicities on how we end up finding things as well. It's like, as you say, your son in prison, it's like getting that book, and then from there, all of the dominoes fall, and it's always such a fascinating thing. And I'm curious if you could share, Holly, a little bit, potentially for those that haven't, explored or even heard of, like the quantum healing hypnosis technique, like a little bit more about it, like what is it and how does it work?
Yeah. So Dolores Cannon, like I said, she wrote 21 books. In her early career as a hypnotist, she was very focused on historical things. So, for example, she wrote 2 books on Jesus. She had a client who regressed as the rabbi that gave Jesus and John their bar mitzvah, an Essene rabbi. And so in her early books, she was really, really interested in history. And she would go, like, for example, in the 2 books on Jesus, it's Jesus and the Essenes, and they walked with Jesus. And she would go corroborate with archaeology what came out in hypnosis. So she considered herself a researcher of lost knowledge. And it was only very late in her career. She passed in 2014 at the age of, I think she was either 83 or 84. And she didn't find QHHT until right around 2000, the year 2000. So very, very late in her life and in her career. And what she found first was this connection with the higher self, and that physical healing could happen through connection with the higher self. And so that's what we're doing in QHHT. We're connecting with the higher self. Now, pay careful attention. I'm not saying my higher self. I'm saying the higher self. And so this is the aspect that we all share. Some people might call it the Akashic Records. Some people might call it super consciousness, but it's the shared consciousness of everyone that has the answers to everything, individually and collectively. Okay, so that's who we're connecting with. So in that 5 to 7 hour session, most of my clients come in for either physical or emotional healing. So this is physical and emotional healing. Okay, so there's something wrong. There's some sort of problem that needs to be resolved. And so they'll come into the session with all of the questions that they want to ask. There's only ever one session. Okay, it's one and done. And because the higher self knows what you're going to need 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And it's all packed into, programmed into that session by them, by spirit. And so we spend a couple of hours in the morning making sure that I understand the client's questions, making sure that I understand the context around the questions, because when we get into the hypnosis, it's just going to be an organic conversation with me and the higher self. So I kind of don't know where it's going to go before it goes. So I got to get ready. Okay. So I got to really look at the nooks and crannies of what's going on with the client. Where did their physical situation arise? How old were they? What were the circumstances? All those kinds of things I need to know. And then we go into the hypnosis. And like I said, the hypnosis is 2 to 3 hours. We might do a past life regression, but it might also be future life or simultaneous life or eternal life. But basically, the client's going to have a journey, a spiritual journey. And then we're going to segue into the conversation with the higher self. And that's where I'm having that just organic, flowy conversation, getting the answers to all of their questions. And I've seen things like stage 4 cancer instantaneously heal. I've seen tumors dissolve in front of my very eyes. Name an autoimmune disease, it's been resolved. But the most important question when it comes to healing, physical or emotional, for the higher self, is why? Why is this situation manifest? And there's always a reason, and there's always a message in that physical manifestation. We don't call it an illness. We don't call it a disease. It's just a physical situation, an experience. And then once the client understands why, then we can begin to move forward in a healed state. But that question why is the most important. All of that in the hypnosis is audio recorded. Then I'll bring the client out, debrief a little bit. I'll throw on my psychologist hat and kind of throw some interpretations. You might want to pay attention to this part of the recording. You might want to listen to this part, or there are some recurring themes in this regard. So I might do some of that. And then the client leaves the session with their recording. And the most important part of all of this, the point of all of this, is that they then go listen to that recording over and over and over and over again for years to come. And new information is going to come out. New circumstances are going to cause new meaning to some of that. Of course, the client's going to grow. There's going to be deeper meaning. But literally, that recording is of value for years to come. And that's the reason why it's one and done. You'll only ever have one session. So it's an intense day. It's an intense ceremony, but it's really powerful, and you only have to do it once.
Awesome. And, as you were saying earlier with your experience of being a little bit of skeptical,
Yes.
how, I'm sure because I have, lots of people that have come to see me through the years that either someone else sent them or recommended them, but, like they come and they are very skeptical and very unsure of what's going to happen. I'm sure this has happened to you. How has that been? And has there been in your experience people that, like haven't been able to actually get into the hypnosis state, or how has that been?
Yeah. So that's one of the beauties of Dolores's technique, and it only took her 30 years to figure it out. But her induction methodology is really, really powerful. And then the other secret to QHHT is we just have this ridiculous luxury of time, right? And that helps people go into trance and go into a very deep trance just because of the luxury of time, much less the masterpiece of her induction. So, but there are occasions. I mean, I did have one situation where the gentleman's wife made the appointment for him, and he had no intentions of going along. And I can't force anyone into hypnosis that doesn't want to go. So that could be a circumstance. I did have a woman once, and she told me this before when she made her appointment. And I said, well, come on in and we'll see if it works. It didn't. But she had advanced Parkinson's disease, and the tremors just wouldn't let her relax in the way we need to relax for QHHT. But really, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Yes.
So if you're motivated, and with all of the prep work that we're doing on that day, and then Dolores's very gentle but powerful induction, the vast majority of people can achieve that level of trance. And it's not that hard. I mean, it's just hypnosis is just a brainwave state. And it's a brainwave state halfway in between awake and asleep. And you're there twice a day, every day, right before you go to sleep and right before you wake up. So a lot of people hang like a lot of weight on it, like it's some woo-woo, shamanic something. It's like, no, actually, it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. And you kind of do it every day. You just don't know you're doing it. And you don't have a third person, right? Me, the client, and the higher self, me being the third person. You don't have the third person in the room facilitating the conversation. But we're all in connection with a higher self all day, every day. It's not weird. It's not woo-woo. It's just I'm facilitating with 13 years of experience the conversation. And you don't normally have a third person in the room helping you do that.
Yeah, I often say, because different people, as it happens, as you're saying, different people come with different levels of openness,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, like I have found through the years, that it's about being able to bring into their level of understanding what this is. As you're saying, like sometimes people, the word hypnosis might get them to be a little bit guarded or unsure. Whereas, like if it's like, oh, this is a state that you go through every single day, twice a day, then
Close your eyes. You're in a light state of hypnosis.
yes,
That's it.
yeah.
It's
So
really that.
it's stuff like that. Like a lot of times at university that I teach here, and I try to share things that instead of being so foreign or so far away, it's like, oh, these are things that you're already doing. Like a lot of times I tell, even with meditation and mindfulness as well, like we have all done that. Whether it's, like perhaps it doesn't look like I'm going to cross my legs and close my eyes, but it's about the state. Yeah, exactly. It's about the state of being in that stillness or in that flow or whatever we want to call it, in that present moment. And it's things like that it's like, okay, like I already know this. I don't practice it, but I already know this. And I think that for a lot of people, just being able to find the correct words or something that allows them to open is so important. And then there's people, as you're saying, they just are ready. Like I was telling one of my clients 2 days ago that came for the first time. She had never done any type of therapy or alternative therapy or holistic practices or energy work. And like towards the end, she was like, wow, I felt all of these things and I didn't know that I could feel it. I'm like, well, you did that for yourself. Like I was there facilitating that, but you did that for yourself. It's not that I'm doing something to you. And I think that as well is so powerful.
Exactly. I have a lot of clients. Most of my clients travel in to Durango to see me. And a lot of times it'll be the husband and the wife. So I'll have the wife. Usually it's the husband on the first day because he wants to make sure I'm legit, right? Not going to hurt his wife. He's being protector. So sweet. And then the wife will come the second day. But the wife is the one that's the huge spiritual fan, read all of the Dolores books, is super excited. And the husband's just being drug along, right? To make sure his wife is safe, right? But the husband invariably, knowing nothing and being completely detached from the spiritual information, will have the most profound session. And then the wife the next day will have kind of it was pretty good.
Yeah, I know that from my parents.
Yeah, I love it. I
Mm.
absolutely love it. And then like the husband session, like I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, we're going to other planets and 12th dimensional beings are speaking through him. And it's just like crazy stuff.
Um, wow. And I think that and this is why I love having conversations like this, to be able as well to bring into simplifying things or making things that potentially people, don't understand fully. I think that I talk a lot about spirituality and energy. And sometimes, as you were, saying before, it's like, oh, people think this is woo-woo and all of these things, but it's also because of how sometimes it's being shown and how people have a misconception on what is spiritual. It's
Yeah,
like having a conversation can be spiritual.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it doesn't
Absolutely.
need to be rainbows and unicorns and love and light and like all of these things that potentially we perceive as spiritual. And it's
Yeah.
like just having conversations that I think that are able to unpack a little bit and just to share just whatever it is that we're doing can be spiritual. Like whatever it is that is happening in our lives can be a teacher, whether that's the challenging experience or not, whether it is, as you were saying, something that is physical, that we could potentially call illness or sickness. It's everything is there for a reason, to show something as well.
Yeah. So that makes me think about the first book in the trilogy that I wrote, and it's called Finding Purpose, Surprising Wisdom from the Higher Self. And the reason I wrote it was very early in my QHHT career. It kind of freaked me out because everybody had the same questions, across people that didn't know each other, right? And some of the similarities were, of course, what is my life purpose and what's my life lesson? Okay. And everybody wants their life purpose to be, to change the world, to do all of these grandiose things. And then what really freaked me out, not that the questions were all the same, but that the answers were all the same across people who didn't know each other from the higher self. And so the most common answer of the higher self, not all, but over half, I studied about 430 something sessions for that book. And it's kind of a compilation of all those sessions. But the vast majority of those 430 sessions, do you want to know what the answer to what is my life purpose?
Yeah, of course, and I'm sure that everyone that is listening wants to as well.
To be, to be. To be the only Brian that's ever been Brian, to be the only Holly that's ever been Holly. That's it. It's not complicated, and we do, to your point, Brian, we try, and I think even some spiritual people do this, that they try to make things complex or grandiose or, I don't know, dramatic, but it's all so simple and peaceful,
Mm,
right? What is your life purpose? To be, just to
mm,
be you, to be the only you that's ever been. That's
mm.
it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I had to write that book because I'm like, I have to scream this from the mountaintop. I know what your purpose is.
Yeah, I think that I remember once one of my teachers said, like, and of course it didn't come from an experience like you of that, but he said, like, the purpose of life is just to experience, similar to
Exactly.
experience in your own unique way, and that's it. And I think that, this is why I got so drawn when I was younger to Buddhist teachings, because it's all about that. And because I saw Buddhism as ways of understanding life and not so
Mhm.
much of, like religion or dogma or anything. And it was more like this understanding. All that I need to do is to be. Yes, and I'm practicing and learning different perspectives. I am doing all of these different things. But at the end of the day, it's for the same reason. Just to be present, to be able to be here, and to be able to be aware. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to be, yeah, exactly. Exactly. To I was going to use the word moderate, but that's not the right word. To just tap in, to be present for your state of being in every moment,
Mm.
to truly experience every moment and not miss a single one as
Mm.
you're just being. Yeah, we say
Yeah.
just be, but actually it's kind of hard to just be
Yeah. Well,
because we're
like,
trained not to, right?
and not only that, I usually tell to people, like, we're not human doings, we're human beings, and all that we know is how to do and know how to be.
Mhm.
But,
Exactly.
it's a process of unlearning a lot of times, and to release something so that then we can be in that, state of present, or that state of being in the present. And
Yeah.
I would love it, Holly, if you can share a little bit more, because I know last time when we spoke, you were sharing about with your 3 books, kind of like the process as well, because I think that this is part of the process, how your 3 books are touching these different topics. Yeah, I would love it if you can share a little bit more about your second book, and then we can get into your third book, because I think that the topics as well are quite relevant to be able to explore in terms of our own experience of healing or our own experience of being.
Yeah. So that first, I thought it was only going to be one. And then Spirit told me otherwise. They told me it was going to be a trilogy after the first one was out. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing because I might not have written any if I knew it was going to be 3. But yeah, so the first book is that Finding Purpose, Surprising Wisdom from the Higher Self. And that's just, it's intended to, the 3 books work together as a stepping stones, as a spiritual path. And the first book is really just orienting you to why you're here, why you're incarnated, and kind of getting out of the way the things like we were just talking about in terms of grandiosity and ego and um, kind of understanding that going within, understanding yourself is the most important thing, right? So finding purpose within yourself, right? And then the second book came about. I was seeing the higher self use a certain technique to do a lot of physical healing. And the higher self kept coming back to the same technique, and it was forgiveness for physical healing. And so much of our physical manifestations are because we're harboring guilt, shame, regret, anger, hatred, all of these fear-based things. And it literally makes us sick. And the path to healing that is forgiveness. So that's the second book, Finding Forgiveness, Surprising Healing from the Higher Self. And that book specifically, so I kept watching the higher self do the same 4 steps to process forgiveness. And I'm like, oh, everybody tells you need to forgive. Nobody tells you how to forgive. So the book is a how-to on forgiveness. And so it's a 4-step process of see, accept, release, and move. And so it goes into those 4 steps. And what I witnessed the higher self doing in those 4 steps to help physically heal clients.
Mm.
A very common situation over and over and over again. And I guess it's not just QHHT practitioners that have found this, but cancer is anger, unresolved anger. And so, of course, the pathway through that is forgiveness.
Mm.
So this link between forgiveness and physical healing.
Yeah, I a lot of times with so many clients through the years using forgiveness. The interesting thing a lot of times, it's people like, oh, I already forgave this. And I'm uh, like perhaps in your head, but
Not here.
not really. Yes, and then we go through different processes that I use for different people depending on where they are, what they need, and then it's like seeing that shift that is so important. And as you're saying, I work with people that as well like have spontaneously healed from tumors or cancer or different things. And actually, just as a side note, I started to get like some years ago, I started to get people coming telling me like, I heard that you heal cancer. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I
I'm
do
not
not
either.
I do not heal cancer. What I do is I support people in their own healing, and if they are ready to do that, then that will heal. But if not, no,
Yeah.
and it was a really interesting thing because I kind of like I had for a period of time kind of like a lot of people that would come with cancer and then like they would heal, and but as well, like I started to notice as well, like not everyone wants to, or not everyone is ready, or not everyone's, path in this life is to actually heal from that. So I was like, I need to be really careful, but forgiveness is such a big key in all of this. And like, because I use a lot of systemic family constellations work as well. And I heard this from some people that when we are forgiving others as well, sometimes in our mind, some people think that that makes it that we are more than others, that we have the power to forgive others. And like, it's not about that. Like, the forgiveness is more of a releasing or letting go, or not longer harboring or like, staying stuck with something that no longer serves us. That's it.
Well,
And
there's three parts to forgiveness. Okay. So yes, you're extending forgiveness to the other person that might have harmed you. But in that same situation, you also have to receive forgiveness from them, whether they're alive or not. You have to be receptive to receiving their forgiveness. You were a party. It takes two to tango. Okay. And so you have to be open to receiving forgiveness. And then lastly, the most important part is self-forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself for the situation. So, yeah.
And the fact that you've
Those
been
last,
carrying
those,
that.
those last two parts are the hardest.
Yeah, and the fact that you've been carrying that for so long, whether you knew it or not, as well. It's like I tell a lot of times to my clients, is like in the past I didn't have the awareness that I have now, so I cannot judge. Like, I can just see myself in the past with love and compassion, and therefore I am forgiving myself because I can see, I did the best that I could in those moments. And the way of surviving in those moments was, okay, like, I'm holding on to this and I'm blocking this energy and I'm then going to carry it. Okay, now I have a different level of awareness and I can go to those places that I wasn't able to before, and I can see myself and forgive myself very differently.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that was the second book. And then the most recent one is finding gratitude, surprising growth from the higher self. So now the trilogy's done. I got- I get my check mark from spirit. But finding gratitude is about, and I didn't realize this before I started getting the information for the book. But gratitude is not, oh, I'm going to bless my food, or I'm going to say a prayer, or I'm going to, do a gratitude journal, or count my blessings, or whatever. Those are all wonderful things to do. But the gratitude that Spirit's talking about for this book is your state of being, how you're living, your energetic state of being as living in a state of gratitude for everything, for the traffic jam, for the screaming kids, for the wars, for the darkness. The gratitude for everything. And then what I really had missed, and I did not understand this before the higher self gave me the information for the book, is, so think about it. We're here. Why do we have an incarnation at all? Why bother at all, right? And not what is your personal mission or what is your personal purpose, but why have incarnation at all? And of course, the reason is for soul growth. Our souls are not omnipotent, okay? Our souls are learning. Our souls are growing through our incarnate experiences. But what I really didn't understand was how our state of being, how we show up in our lives, contributes to soul growth. It makes the soul growth more impactful, richer, more flavorful for the soul in how you show up, and particularly in a state of gratitude. So you can come into an incarnation and just, robot it through. That's not horrible. There's no condemnation for that. But if you're showing up in every moment for everything, even the darkness, genuinely in a state of gratitude for every breath, for every moment, then so much more can be gleaned from the incarnate experience by the soul.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I remember, I think that I was in my early 20s, and one of my teachers, like I had this list, as you were saying, like of gratitude, and he just saw me reading it, and I was like, and, it's like, kind of like, are you feeling that? Like, are you actually like, are your cells vibrating with that sense of gratitude? Or did you just say some words? Which there's nothing wrong, as you're saying, there's nothing wrong with doing that. That could either be, what leads us later to the feeling, or part of that. That it's the state of being, it's the how we're vibrating. That is the different thing. And I think that the awareness for me through the years of being able to understand, as you were saying, even in the things that my mind would tell me, oh, this is bad or this is negative, it's like, oh, thank you. One of the things that changed a lot, I think that I was like 17, and I went driving to my first spiritual teacher, and something happened on the road, and I was like a couple of minutes late. And she was like, sorry, I got there, kind of like a little bit stressed. And she's like, oh, how wonderful that you were late. How wonderful that happened. What I was telling her that happened on the road. Because if not, then, potentially you could have died or gotten into an accident.
Right.
Like, the fact that you were held in that spot and weren't able to get out for a few minutes was a way of potentially the universe preventing you from an accident. And then I started to see, it's kind of like things in a much very different light in terms of that. It's like, oh, okay, so it's not that I need to be, like so stressed or so angry towards that situation that happened with traffic. It was like, oh, thank you.
And I think I love that. I love that example, Brian, because I think gratitude in the mundane is the most important. And I use this example when I'm coaching people, going to the grocery store, right? It's usually stressful. You're usually in a hurry. You want to get home, get your food cooked, and you might be hungry. And if you're like me, you're going to run into the store and you're not going to get a basket because you only need two things, right? And then you start walking through the aisles and you're like, oh wait, but I need some of that and I need some of this and I need some. And by the time you get to the checkout, you've got like 20 things in your arms, right? And then the line is long and you're getting impatient and angry and why are these people so slow? And right? We get into that fear, right? Because all of that impatience is just fear, right? And in that moment, stop and generate gratitude. And you just tell yourself stories. Just say, you know, oh my gosh, I have all of the money to buy all of this food. I'm going to get to share it with my family. I have friends and family to share it with. I mean, look at the abundance. I had 5 different kinds of yogurt to choose from. Are you kidding me? What kind of abundance do I live in, right? And you can sit there and shift, right? Shift your own frequency into one of gratitude in the same moment, in the same circumstance, in the same situation. And it's a choice. You have to have the awareness, the mindfulness, and then you have to have the choice. And, yeah.
Yeah, but it's that, like, as you're saying, it's in every single thing, in every single moment that we have an opportunity to choose, to be present and to choose and to be able to find that space or that vibration of gratitude. And yes, like I tell a lot of times to people, like, even as you were saying, like, just think of something that you are grateful for, so that then perhaps that is what starts to give you the feeling, so that then you actually are in that state. Because sometimes it's, like, if we don't know, like, oh, how does this feel, then we don't know how to get it. But like sometimes, yes, just think about it. And it's, I tell a lot of times to my students at university, we are so privileged and we don't realize it. Like, as you were saying, like, just the abundance of options that we have, it's like I tell my students here, like, you're able to get an education, to go to university, like, there's millions and millions of people that cannot do that. There's millions of people that don't have a roof over their heads, that they don't have water or food, like, there's so many different things. And even in those situations, we could potentially find gratitude. But, just from, like, most of the people that I work with, or my students, it's like, we have already so much. Like, let's focus on that. Let's focus on that feeling.
Yeah. And of course, I work with a lot of people that are interested in physical and emotional healing. And there's this loop, this spiral, especially for physical pain. Okay. And so when we have a small amount of physical pain, then we try to shut it. We try to not feel, we try to disassociate from it. And then that puts us in an even lower vibration, which then creates more pain. And it's just this horrible spiral, right, into more and more and more pain, because the pain is trying to tell us to feel, to tap in, and eventually lead us to that state of being, that high vibration state of being that is gratitude. And so it sounds really counterintuitive and it sounds really hard, but honestly, being grateful for your physical pain is one way out of the physical pain.
Yeah, I have this, like, when I was talking earlier about all of these people that have come with cancer to see me, like, and that was one of the biggest things, get them to understand how to be grateful for the cancer, how to be grateful for that signal that there's something that they weren't looking at or feeling or experiencing, that now they have the opportunity to do. So yeah, definitely. Holly, I'm just aware of our time here. Before we go, and you can share with people in a moment.
And I could talk to you for hours.
I know. Yes, I know. Like, is there something that is coming in now for you that you would like to share with everyone that is here watching and listening to us?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to be having a YouTube live. So if you find me on YouTube, Holly Duckworth, PhD, And it's called How Love and Light in a Time of War. And me and some colleagues are going to be investigating this. Those of us on the spiritual path who are devoted to bringing love and light and peace into the world. Is that naivete in a time of war, or is that necessary in a time of war? And so it's about walking this path of love and light, because a lot of people accuse those of us that are devoted to love and light of being naive for the darkness in the world. But just like we were talking, we cannot know light without knowing dark, right? And so there's even gratitude for the dark. And so we're going to be having a conversation about this love and light in a time of war, and how do you, as someone who is devoted to love and light and peace, which most of us on this spiritual path are, how do you communicate? How do you express to the rest of the world, I'm living the way I live, not out of naivete, but out of necessity?
Beautiful. Yeah. It's like I totally get that as well. The same type of experience. So wonderful. And for everybody, Holly, that has been watching and listening to us, that perhaps they'd love to know more about you or your work that you do, or want to get in contact, how they can find you.
Yeah. So 3 ways, really. So my YouTube channel, Holly Duckworth, PhD. My Instagram is Aware Care, QHHT. And the name of my business is Aware Care Durango. And that's my website, AwareCareDurango.com. So they can join me there.
Beautiful. And as well, they can find your books there and in Amazon, I'm assuming?
Amazon, they're on paperback, Kindle, and Audible.
Awesome. Cool. So for everybody that has been here, if you resonated with Holly, with what she's been sharing, go and check out those. Like, I'll put the links there so it's easy to access. And if you're interested in the books as well, go and check it out. If you're interested in the hypnosis, perhaps you can reach out to her. And yeah, as always, if anything resonated that you heard, or if you have an experience similar that you want to share, comment whatever it is that you're finding this episode so that we can keep the conversation going. Thank you so much, Holly, for your time, for sharing, for the work that you're doing. Because as you're saying, I do find it that, we are doing something that, even if it's for ourselves or for those around us or for the collective, we're doing something that we need more and more nowadays. So thank you, and thank you for taking the time once more to connect with me and to share with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you everyone as well for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.